Tel Aviv. Dalia Scheindling is an Israeli political analyst who joins us from there. So real concerns about democracy, it seems, in Israel today. What do you believe the far right, the religious Zionism party, is trying to achieve or will try to achieve if they form part of this new coalition?
Well, thank you for having me. We don't have to guess because they have published a plan in great detail. They've published many plans, but the particular plan that deals with the issue of judicial independence that you've raised was called their legal reform plan. It is, by the way, ironically named the Law and Justice Plan for Legal Reform. They want to, first and foremost, I would say, constrain the authority of the Supreme Court. I think that's the most important element, and I think it's one of the first policies they will try to pursue, is essentially to undermine the power of the court to rule that legislation violates basic human rights by passing a law in which the Knesset could override such a Supreme Court ruling by a simple majority of 61 out of 120, which of course they will have because they control the government. That's the first step. But the plan goes much further in trying to weaken the role of the Attorney General, possibly cancel one of the crimes for which Mr. Netanyahu, the Prime Minister who is waiting to come back, is being prosecuted for as we speak. They want to extend the control of politicians over Judicial Appointment Committee and civil service appointments. Basically, we're going to see a society governed by the majority with very few constraints, if any.
Will this also deepen, or is this what they hope, the grip of Judaism over all aspects of public life?
Yeah, certainly. They've also explained quite clearly why they want to do these reforms that will constrain the authority of the judiciary to put any checks and balances on the government, because they want to continue implementing an illiberal agenda that would include greater control for religious and theocratic forces over public life in Israel. Remember, Israel historically has a prominent role for Jewish religion in dominating public life and certain elements of private life, such as family law. There have been attempts to reform this, especially in the recent government, after decades, really going back to the beginning of statehood. And this government, and specifically the Religious Zionism Party, wants to put a stop to any such reforms. And as you also mentioned, I think the primary agenda is that they want to ensure that Israel continues to deepens its control over the West Bank and effective control around Gaza, and ultimately becomes the permanent sovereign, which it already really is. And I think that it's time to acknowledge that there is no more peace process on the table. The idea of a two-state solution is completely anathema to these parties that we expect to form the government. Up until now, any legislation in Israel that has attempted, for example, to legitimize settlements which Israeli law considers illegal, even though by international law they're all illegal. The Israeli government tried to pass a law to legitimize settlements, and it was struck down by the Supreme Court. They have openly stated they want to re-legislate that kind of law. That is just the beginning. There is no question about what their agenda is because they say it quite openly.
Dalia, very interesting to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining us from Tel Aviv.
Thank you for having me.